I wanted to first welcome everybody. But I'm Douglas MacLeod, the chair of the RAIC Center for Architecture at Athabasca University. Just so you know, the RAIC stands for the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. But our university, Athabasca University, is a virtual university, and our architecture program is totally online. But over the past few years, we've been working with other innovative schools. Some of them are virtual, some of them are bricks and mortar. This includes the open architecture people in South Africa, but also the Tech Monterrey group in Monterrey, Mexico, Cardiff, Wales, and other places around the world. We've been developing new ways of working together, such as online, international workshops in sustainable building. And this lecture is the first step in taking that idea further. And we're definitely planning more of these kinds of online activities, particularly during these difficult times. And in fact, we'd like to create a global studio in which students from around the world could collaborate on critical issues such as climate change and regenerative design. I also note, not just students, but today we're offering this as a form of continuing education as well. And if you need a certificate of completion, we're preparing one and we will email it to you. We'll send out instructions on how to get that. But I know we've got this as professional development for the Alberta Association of Architects and for a number of different institutions, organizations in South Africa. And also please stay with us at the end of this lecture for an announcement about the next event in the series. And also, because we have 500 people from all over the world, if you're interested in being part of this activity, sponsoring a lecture or a workshop or a webinar, please contact us as well. I can, however, think of no better way to start this series than with a lecture by Odile Decq. I had the opportunity to speak with Odile at the RAIC Festival in St. John, New Brunswick in 2018, and her concept of architectural thinking, which she'll speak about today, is essential to addressing the critical issues I mentioned earlier. But now, Henry's working diligently to bring everybody in, but Henry, is it okay to turn it over to you to introduce Odile now?
Sure.
Not yet.
Yes.
Not yet?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for Odile for accepting our invitation to present today. And thank you for everyone to come today to participate in on this for this lecture from all across the world. As Douglas mentioned, we are about 500 people still trying to log in right now, but we're almost closing in on the in getting everyone in. So during the webinar, I would like to ask everyone to keep your mics and cameras off to ensure best audio and visual performance. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. Only through the chat box. If you could type your questions in the chat, we will answer them at the end. And that being said, I would like to present you today's guest speaker, described as the punk rock architect, Miss Odile Decq. Odile is a French architect and urban planner. Of course, you know she is the founder of Studio Odile Decq, and also the Confluence Institute. She was awarded the Golden Lion of Architecture at the Venice Biennale in 1996, acknowledged for her early and unusual career. She embraces urban planning, architecture, design, and art. And her multidisciplinary approach has recognized her with the Jane Drew Prize in 2016 and the Architizer Lifetime Achievement Award in 2017. And in Canada, we also awarded her an Honorary Fellowship for the RAIC in recognition of her outstanding contribution in building science, design, and education. Odile has been teaching architecture for 25 years. She has been a guest professor at the Bartlett in London, the Kunstakademie in Vienna, SCI-Arc in Los Angeles, Columbia University in New York, the GST at Harvard in Massachusetts, and of course, we are glad to also invite her to Athabasca today. In France, she has taught, she was the head of the L'École Spéciale d'Architecture in Paris. And also after 15 years, she has established her own school of architecture called the Confluence Institute for Innovation and Creative Strategies in Architecture, which is a school accredited by the Royal Institute of British Architects. One of the most forward-thinking and innovative schools of architecture in the world currently, which is why we are very interested in her work and from which we would like to learn from and hopefully collaborate. So thank you very much, Odile, for accepting our invitation. Without further ado, I would like to pass the stage, not really a stage, but the window to you.
Okay, so I have to share my screen now, maybe. I have to find how to share my screen. So this is that, and I have to do it full screen. How do I do that? Full screen. Start the video. Afficher.
It should be down on the lower.
No, this is done.
You got it.
Yeah. So thank you very much for having invited me to this particular event, which is my first online Zoom lecture in my life. And it's really, a friend of mine did one last week for another place in my school. Mm-hmm. He told me that it's very particular to talk to a screen, not to talk to an audience, even if I know that there are a lot of people around the screen, but I'm just talking to the screen without feeling the audience by themselves directly. So this is quite particular. And if I can start now, I want to say that my first image is the back of my screen now, with this line, with this image from my window when I'm in Brittany, close to the sea. And this is to show you the horizon line. And when I've been invited to Athabasca to give this lecture from Athabasca, because this is not in Athabasca, it's from Athabasca, I was looking at the map and searching where is Athabasca. And I discovered that it's just in the middle of Canada, a bit up. So I'm sure that you have a view on a concept of horizon, which is totally different than mine, because it's an horizon which is from very vast territories. And my horizon is very vast water, sea. But why I'm interested about the horizon line is because I like to try. When I learned to sail, when I was a child and teenager, I love to travel through and forward the horizon. And for me, the travel through and forward the horizon is a metaphor of the architectural design process. I explain. When you sail, you make the point and you want to reach the point that you decide on the horizon line. There is no point, but you decide one point. And you try to reach it. And for reaching that point, you have to navigate. And you navigate never directly, never on a straight line. It's always doing some curved line, depending of the current, depending of the wind, and depending of on the sun. As soon as you reach this point, you don't see it, and you have another point. You have always a new point to do, and to reach, you always have to go forward. And doing architecture, designing project, is for me exactly the same. I have a point, more or less. When I start a project, I have a point, and I start to negotiate and to navigate to reach that point. And the navigation is through regulation, budget, cost, engineering, sociology, whatever it is. And it's a question of how you navigate and you find your way to reach the point that you wanted to discover. But as soon as you finish your the project, I wanted to always go forward. And you have to go from this calm weather or sometimes in another weather. So depending on the conditions of your project, depending on the condition of your environment, that means the client, that means the place where you work for, and that depending of the program, the condition could be sometimes very difficult, but sometimes quite. And through that, you manage your way, and this is always an adventure. And I like this idea that doing a project is going for adventure. Why architecture thinking? Because when a client called me asking me to work for this boat, it was not built. It was just a drawing at the beginning. And when I received the call, I was dreaming. I was thinking, my God, why they want me to do a boat, a sailing boat? And but it was just because they wanted to build it, and they were searching for an architect to help them. And I was not designing the hull. I was just working on the interior, but reshaping the deck, reshaping the windows, reshaping everything. But it's really particular because when I saw the drawing at the first meeting with my client, I discovered that this sailing boat is 34 meters long and the mast 50 meters high. And the big sail, 900 square meters. So it's really something particular. And at my first discussion with my client, I proposed him to have a flush deck. That means a continuous surface. Whatever the accident, whatever we have to find and to put inside or above, it will be a continuous surface. And it's why we developed this surface and redesigned the deck by developing and integrating everything inside with that we can walk, you can dance, you can run, you can do what you want on this continuous surface all the way on the sailing boat. And when we had to integrate the support of the mast, it was to an object, but I said no, and I wanted to develop again more the surface to integrate everything inside, and it's very strong. But to do that, the shipyard didn't know how to build that, and I had to draw. And it was in 2003, 2004, so I had to draw at this time every details to do a model, and they were doing at the same time in the shipyard that I was going there every month. I was going to them with some sections, some drawings, some models, a bit of 3D model, but it was not so easy at this time to develop that in 3D model, and to work with them, and they were doing the mock-up, and after that building the boat. And I was working as they were starting to build, and they were doing the mock-up of the interior. And we developed that together, integrating everything inside, the windows and inside. And inside, everything has been designed. And what is particular when you design into a boat, that you work a lot in section. You can't work only on plan, because the section, because of the form of the shape of the hull, is changing every millimeter, every centimeter. So you have to redesign and to check everything in section all the time. So it makes you very caring a lot about the details. I will not develop everything, but the plan of this boat is for just a family. And we have 170 or 180 square meters inside. And there are a few cabins, and everything is flexible. We can reorganize the space because they wanted to have a flexible space as a loft on the sea. For example, the bedroom, the master bedroom, is a big bedroom and a bathroom in the back with a mirror on the back to give the impression that it's bigger. And it doesn't want to change my windows. Okay. And we designed, as I said, I designed everything, even the basin to wash and the mirror inside, that makes the impression of doubling. So this question of reflection and giving the impression that the space is bigger than what it is really one of my preoccupations. I always want to express the space bigger than it is, or wider than it is, or longer than it is. And it's really one of my main preoccupations. And I play with that for doing that sometimes with mirrors, with a kind of passage, etc. And so I was explaining before at the people from the University of the Center of Architecture that usually I do lecture by showing my project one by one, a bit chronologically or by categories. But I didn't want to do that today because I was, since 2 months, as everyone around the screen, I have been confined and locked down, and I have to work. I have to work intensively because working on Skype and working on Zoom is much more intensive than working in the real life, but it's working. It was working. And at the same time, I was trying to think if I have to continue to work as I was working, because everybody, I don't know in your countries, different countries, but in France, and I'm sure that everywhere, everybody is asking, does the world has to be the same after that it was before? Because this confinement or this lockdown has made people thinking back about their life, about their way of behaving, their way of working, their way of living, their way of whatever. Not traveling because you can't travel, but you have to travel in your mind differently. So this is why I was thinking that I have to do that differently. And I was looking at my work back, and I decided to reorganize lecture, not by project, but by a kind of what were my preoccupations during that project? What are my kind of, not my, what I do repeat, but what I like and what I search when I try to do a project. So the boat was something particular. So sometimes I do art. This is art in a way. Every year, Vitra, the company for furniture, is taking part of a charity and give a furniture to some architects, to some artists, to some designers, and ask them to transform it. So one year, it was the IMS chair. And I decided to make sitting a lady on the seat and to make the body as the seat itself by painting, etc., etc. You know the chair, you know what it is. And it was at the end a picture, a photo that they sold. The other one, and it's very bizarre because these two images close to them, close to each other, I was thinking, everybody was thinking, we'll be thinking that I'm a bit sadomasochist or something like that. No, I'm not. This is just because I like to make something which is on the outside, which is forward, which is a step outside. And this is a cork stool that we made what we transform as a pillow for a fakir with nails that we put one by one, we inserted in one by one in this cork. It was a long work. Sometimes also, it happens that I did furniture, not jewelry. On the left is something for the end, a gallery with selling little jewel by artists or architects, mostly by artists, asked me to do something for the hand. And I said, usually I wear rings, and it's funny because during that lockdown, I don't wear my rings. I think that I'm out. I don't have to, except my face, I don't do anything else. And so, okay, this is apart, my private life. But I wanted not to do a bracelet, not to do a ring. I wanted to do something which is taking all the end with a kind of a ribbon in silver. And on the right, it's a pending for the ears that I did after having doing an exhibition in an art gallery with some mobile. And this object that you see on the ear of this woman was in the gallery 150 centimeters high, suspended and pending into the gallery. But that one is 12 centimeters high. And this is like something for your ear, and it exists in black and red. But I worked close to the body. This is why I said I worked close to the body. And it was in the 90s, at the middle of the 90s, that a company from Italy asked me to design a door handle and a door button. And when you are an architect and you have to work to very small objects like that, you question yourself, because how to do that? This is not just a drawing. This is not just a design, but this is something for your hand. So we started by modeling, doing models or modeling pasta. And step by step, we did a lot, maybe 10, 15, 50, 100 models that we stored in a box now for doing this door handle that is comfortable for the hand, that where your thumb could put to rest on this object, and it has to go back to the door for the American market. And the door button is something that you can take in your hand, but it's not just a button. It's not round, it's something particular. But when you put your hand on it, it's very comfortable. So I started to work from this period close to the body, because I think that architecture is something referring to the body of human. And this is not like wearing. This is not like a seat. This is not like a furniture, even if I do furniture, because this is a cloth which is a bit larger. And you have to feel your body inside the space. Because sometimes when somebody asks me, how do you do that? I always, when I start a project, and one step, at one phase, I start to think how I will walk inside the space, where I will look at, where I will put my eyes, where I will want to put my hands. This is really, the space for me is close to the body in a way. It's very sensual and close to my skin. This is why I was not totally, but I was surprised when I had to do this little object, but at the end, it was done. But sometimes when they ask us to do the vitra, gave us 2 stools, we transform them as a constructivist piece or pieces, as you want, with colors. Colors is something that we use, that I use a lot. Everybody thinks that I'm just using black and red, but it's not true. Look at these chairs that we designed for the Macro Museum in Rome. They are black, okay, red, orange, yellow. So there are other colors. So I love to play with colors when I feel that it's possible, when I feel that it's suitable for the space, for the place, or for the client. But I don't impose to anybody the colors when they don't want colors. But for this bar, which is a cafe of the museum, I was thinking that it could be joyful in that museum to have colors for sitting in the bar. And the colors with me are always bright. They're always very strong and very bright. I'm not a pastel colors person. I'm really strong colors. When I renovated one of the bubble house built in the 60s and 70s in south of France, I was using colors, and I mixed colors all together. Not only the coherent that I did for the bar in the macro, but sometimes like that, 12 colors at the same time. And it works, even if they are a collection of color. Like that. It's surprising sometimes. But yellow, pink, purple, green, why not? You can do that. Don't use only gray, white, and black, as usually architects does. Or something's brownish, or beige, or I don't like that. When I did the museum in Rome, the interior of the lecture room is totally red. And it's a bright red. It's a place where you are in the heart of the museum. You are really, as you feel that in the center of the museum. This is red. The first time that I used colors, it was a long time ago, on the left. It was in a library that I did for University in Nantes in 95. And I started to contrast colors together. So this one is yellow-green, undefined color, but really strong. Down the carpet is purple and pink. And on the back side, you see a little bit that there is an object which is green. And I use that usually because not everybody is agreeing to have strong colors everywhere, except for sometimes public buildings. But on the right side, this is the toilets I did for an offices building in Lyon. Totally red, open to the city, but totally red. And another offices building, and at every floor, toilets have a different colors. So you recognize that which floor you are, depending on the colors of the toilets. Okay, you have to go to the toilets, but okay. So there are totally a range of colors that are totally bright. And everything is of this color, except the floor and the appliance. And I love to play with toilets. I started to play with toilets when I worked for the macro. Why I love to play with toilets? Because I discovered that toilets are the only place in architecture where you don't have regulation, where you don't have to fulfill something that the clients ask you to do, or the regulation, or the cost of the budget, or everything. Because when you have to do toilets, you have to fulfill, to give a dimension of the place, to provide a bit of light and water. And that's it. Nobody asks you more. And ventilation, okay. So when I started to do the toilets for the macro in Rome, I was thinking that my toilet will be something different. And I had this idea that because this is a museum, it's a museum of art, and they have a big collection of movies from experimental movies from artists from the 60s and the 70s, and until now, but now they started in the 60s. I wanted to dedicate my toilets to Jacques Tati, the filmmaker, the film director, who did movies in the 60s, and one of his famous one is Playtime. And Playtime, he financed himself this movie and was ruined by the financement of this movie. And in Playtime, the character, one of the first sequence, is played by Jacques Tati himself as the main character, and he enters into an offices building, and he goes to the waiting room. And when he goes to the waiting room, he walks into a corridor, and by walking into the corridor, and because he was wearing shoes with leather soles, and the floor is covered by steel, it's very soundy. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. When he arrives in the waiting room, the seats are very pushing, like you push, up, push. This is very funny. So the sound is very important. So I was thinking, okay, my toilets will be reference to that sequence in Jacques Tati movies. And my toilets are totally covered by stainless steel, mirror stainless steel everywhere. At the extremity of the space, the central space, there is a mirror covering all the wall. At the other extremity, there is a mirror also. And the space is repeated infinitely in that mirrors. So the space is bright, cold, totally modern, totally minimal, as the movie of Jacques Tati. And in the center of the space, there is this white box, which is lighted, and you don't find any sink and any tape to wash your hand. So you go there and you have to start to manipulate your hands above the box. And as soon as you cross an infrared ray coming from the ceiling, the box is becoming red. The water is coming up through that. And when you go on the corner, the dryer is going up also. So you have to become actor in the toilets. You play above this object and you smile when you go out. So playing with toilets is always interesting because you have the total freedom for doing what you want. When I was doing the FRAC museum in Brittany in Rennes in France, I wanted to continue to do that, and I said, okay, I play with fluorescent colors, tubes, to write, this is WC. Okay, this is the toilets. And inside, the partition between men and women, the section men and women, is sinuous, covered by mirror stainless steel again, and you don't know how the space is because of the reflection of everything on both sides, the doors on the other side, and the mirror in front of you. And when you go in and you are inside, you never are yourself. When you look inside this mirror, you don't feel yourself because it's curved, whatever, on both sides. And sometimes you look smaller, thinner, or larger. So this is, again, something where you have to reflect or to think back to who you are in the toilets. And an art gallery close to the office of my office in Paris asked me once in 2007 to renovate, and he asked me to become one of the first exhibitors in the gallery. And in 2009 or 11, I don't remember, he asked me to come back. And I decided that to do a kind of an installation with mirrors, explaining to him that when the collectors, because most of the visitors in art galleries are collectors or people who know already or knew before the art galleries, so they know the space. And because they know the space, I wanted to make them perturbed by the lecture of the space through the mirrors, by installing mirrors on different angles and different places, creating a kind of transformation of the perception of the space when they don't recognize where they are at the entrance. This is for a festival of garden where it was supposed to be thematic of colors. Then I decided to do a black garden, and they decided to build it. So this is just 20 sheets of black glass surrounding a space, and with the reflection of the sun inside, and the floor is black also. And this is playing with the reflection of the sun that transforms the perception of the place. And in SCI-Arc in 2011, they asked me to do an installation in the gallery, and I built a space covered by a mirror with regular space, but because the walls are not vertical but inclined, and the passage between the different spaces are not at the same place, you don't know where you are, you don't know what are the limits. So this is a perturbation of the limit, the perturbation of the perception of the space, and you don't know how the space is organized and what is the design of this space, but you feel that you have to play by going from one space to another space, because this is discovery. This is a discovery, it's an adventure, as I said before. And I like that a lot. In one of my last building, I didn't know, okay, I passed that image. And I was, by looking back my project, I will look at this project. It was in 90 when we did with this main entrance hall. The question, again, we were playing with the reflection of the glass, even if it was a transparent glass, and the perception of the space between this vertical surface, which is totally transparent but totally reflective because you are on the side of this glass surface, and the other curve and the other surface on the other side, which is a curved wall with a lacquered metal. And between them, there are a lot of shadows, depending on the structure outside. And you don't understand where is the limit, the exact limit of the space, because the physical limit is at the glass facade, but the visual limit is at the structure 2 meters before. So all that perturbs the perception of the space. And that means that when you go from one side to the other side, you travel a space which is totally different than your usual all entrance of an offices building. And it was in 1990. In Rome, the cafe is suspended above the entrance. The entrance is down under this volume, this glass box. And this glass box, because it's made with a glass with a stainless steel net inside the laminated glass, it provides a lot of reflection on the facade on the other side. But what is important, is that the glass box is totally in cantilever above the entrance, the passage to go to the museum. Again, I like to play with cantilever. I like to play with something that goes forward, that goes above, that goes further. So this is why I always say that cantilever is going further. This is this glass box, but when you are close, it's totally reflective. And in Lyon, with this offices building, we did a huge cantilever. The length of the cantilever is 25 meters long, and you are 5 floors in cantilever, 25 meters in front of the facade. It was a competition. When I did the competition, the competition was for the site, which is, if you see my arrows, this parallelepiped, which is here. But I decided to twist and to turn the top part of the building above the quay to bring the offices to the river. It was not asked to do that. It was even not in the regulation of the city to allow to do big canopy, big balconies, etc. But I decided to bring the building above and to go a bit higher than the site was authorized. But the mayor was in the jury, and the mayor said, yes, I want this project because this is particular. And what is interesting also is the facade itself, because the facade on the top is a question of perception or reflection, which is totally disturbing what it is. It's a rectangular block of glass, only glass, and 3 layers of glass. And we have been asked during the competition to work with an artist. And I proposed to an artist who is Felice Varini, a Swiss artist living in Paris, to take my facade and to do something with that. And he came to me and he said, Odile, architecture is quite arrogant by erasing the landscape that was already existing. So I want to bring back the landscape on your building to erase your building. So if you look carefully on the facade that you have in front of you, this is exactly the bridge, which is here, is the bridge that you have on the back. So this is a photo that was taken from the point of view above the building on the other direction and reapplying on the facade. And thanks to this facade, to this photo inside the first layer of glass, it protects this glass box from the sun and provides shadow inside the building. This is the size of the cantilever, and you see that with people on. This is 7 meters high and 25 meters long. And underneath you have a glass roof and glass ceiling, and you can look through the building. I love cantilever in that in the art gallery, I said, I was talking before, close to my office. When I renovated it in 2007, it asked me to be the first one in the exhibition, in the gallery. And I did that piece, which is the building, the drawing that I was doing at this time before to the people in my office to express the instability, the instability of equilibrium, or the fragility of equilibrium in a way. So this is a long object because, as you can see, this is 6 meters long. The horizontal bar is 6 meters long. The vertical one is 1.5 meters, something like that. The bubble on the left is a balloon of air of 2 meters diameter. The little balloon on the right is a little ball of aluminum filled with sand. And to reach the equilibrium, because the long bar horizontal is just above the vertical one without any attachment, you have to, at the end, fill the little balloon with the sand grain by grain to reach the equilibrium. So this is the way you can, and if you add 10 grain more, it's not stable. If you have to reach exactly the point. And because it's very long and it's really at the limit of equilibrium, if you go by the big balloon and you pass along the big balloon without touching it, it starts to move a little bit because you are displacing the air around. And because of that, the air makes the balloons a little bit moving. So you feel the instability of the equilibrium or the limit of equilibrium. Again, this is going further. And some years ago, not so long, I started to suspend in another art gallery a mobile that was what we know mobile as the Calder one with equilibrium between balloons and objects, etc., but quite strong and heavy. My mobile is very light, just lines and little surfaces, square and round. And the equilibrium again is very, very particular. To reach it is depending of the weight of the little surface down the circular one, depending of the material that it has, and depending of the size of the length. If it has 2 or 3 grams more, the horizontal lines start to be oblique. So this is very at the limit, and I like to be at the limit. And sometimes I suspend also the meeting rooms in my building. This is in the building, which is in an offices building in Paris, where we had all these colorful toilets. We have suspended balloons in the main hall, entrance hall. This is one meeting room. On the back side, you can enter in it by taking a bus rail. And on the back side, there is another one. And with these steps to go there. So these are meeting rooms, and you have tables inside, and you are going to your meeting in a bubble, in a cocoon. And this building has a little cantilever for the main meeting room on the top, which is like something going further, looking outside, looking at the horizon. And if you look carefully on the side, everything is black and white. Because at this building, I decided that everything except the meeting rooms will be only black and white, and everything inside is black and white, as you can see. And the tables inside the cocoon are particular, because this is for startups. And these startups the people, they are creative people from startups. So I decided that they can sit 2, 3, 4, 10 as they want, or sit on the floor and sit how they want. So they don't have to have a regular table. They can organize themselves, their way of sitting around the table. And I like these fluid forms. And this is why in the Fantôme, the restaurant in the opera that I built 10 years ago now, everything is fluid, everything is sliding, because I couldn't touch anything on the walls, on the cupola, where underneath I have to install the restaurant, and on the floor, only the floor that I can touch. So I did fluid forms to create something which is sliding and that is very comfortable at the same time, without touching anything of the previous monument, because it's an historical monument, the Garnier Opera House, and it's forbidden to touch anything. I show you that, but don't go there because they have destroyed everything. So you will not see it anymore. I have a project I have a sliding, or what I say, a sinuous falling down carpet in Washington, DC, in the Renwick Art Gallery, close to the White House. I did the competition for the main Grand Salon, didn't win the competition, but they asked me the carpet. So I did the carpet on the stair. And this is not a regular carpet, again. And this is the sketch that I did for creating a lamp. When, for an offices building, the one in Lyon, we created a lamp, for that suspended lamp, to provide light below and to use acoustic panels for providing acoustic absorption above the desk. And this is another one, which is, I don't show you the lamp, the final lamp, but this is another one, which is a surface, an indirect lighting underneath a surface, which is suspended above a table. And you don't see the source of the lighting, because the source of the lighting is above the little disc that you see in the central part, and is sending the light under the surface, and the surface down, send back down the light on the table that you can have underneath. So I love to work with the curve. I love to work with sensuous surfaces. And the first time that I did that, it was for that project. It was a competition that I won and never built. It was for an international exhibition in 2004 in Paris. And I call that playing with landscape bondage. Bondage, maybe you know what it is, not all of you. This is a kind of trend, not a trend, fashion, not a fashion. I don't know how to explain that. When you compress the body in a corset, for the women, mostly, you compress the body and you compress the flesh. And after that, because the flesh and the body is compressed at the center part of your body, the flesh above is going down, and underneath is doing the same. So it's going out. So I was playing the same with the landscape. By inserting, this is on the little hill, by inserting a black box that push into the hill, deform the contour line of the hill, and after that, rebuilding something with textile above to incorporate the box into the new hill. And this is why I did that, starting to play with this curve. But at the same time, playing with this landscape, I did that also for this project for a museum in Austria that I won and not built to. It's a museum for a private collector in the countryside, in a very nice, fantastic surrounding of in the Alps, in the bottom part of the Alps in Austria, south of Austria. And I decided to play with the contour line by lifting them one by one and inserting the museum underneath, and just playing with the contour line by rebuilding them at the end and having the landscape and the building integrated into each other. And I did that also for a museum in China, where it was for the museum for the one of the, at this time, what we call the first home of the what is the name? When it was the man of Nanjing, who is the first Homo erectus. Voilà. It was the older Homo erectus discovered on Earth at this time, because now they discover others. And it was, they discovered that in a little grot into that mountains. And I played with the contour lines of the mountains, because bringing the museum to the mountain, because it was belonging to the man who was living in the mountains, and playing with the lines at the end to do a model, and at the end rebuilding the contour lines with the museum itself by the building, and creating the landscape going above the building itself. Playing with landscape is something that I like a lot also. And making confusion between what is landscape, what is building, and creating a mix of them. And it was for a competition for a museum in Cyprus that I played also with something which was not the existing landscape, but I created a landscape with the museum itself. And I love to travel. I'm a real traveler, because as I said at the beginning, I love to go to the horizon line. But not only, I love to travel and to discover. And I love to, I'm not a contemplative person, I'm somebody who is moving. And I love to take the plane, or to take to go by plane somewhere, as I will take the bus to go in the city. So, and I love to discover places that I don't know and I did not know before. This is why I'm a bit frustrated to give this lecture from Athabasca University without being in Athabasca, because I would have loved to discover that place, part of the world. But okay, maybe once. So in my museum, in my building, as I said at once, that I love to experiment the place and the space with my body, thinking I will travel the place. I love to make traveling people in my building. So in the Museum of Rome, in the macro, people were traveling into that by these passerelles at mid-level of the space, of the place, to discover the museum. And it's a long, long promenade if you want to do it, all the way. In the FRAC, in the museum in Rennes, Brittany, this is in the box, because the building is a box. And this is a central part in an oblique space, which is very narrow. And I played with ramps and stairs to go up with a space which is 30 meters high from the top to the bottom. And we turn around and we have ramps and staircases. And this is another kind of promenade, running around the place, taking an escalator to go on one side to the other side, and never being at the same place when you take the escalators and going up. And in other competition, I always play with traveling, and experimenting the place by your making your body. This is extreme. But also, I play with objects and shapes, and I shape the objects. As I said at the beginning with the door handles, I have been asked to design a knife, a folding knife. And when you are an architect, if you succeeded to design a door handle, designing a knife is smaller again. So I did that with some pasta that I passed through the people in my office to make the form and the shape, because I didn't know how to design that. And I brought the model of the pasta with the blade inside to the company, and they said, "You did a model for a knife?" I said, "Yes, because I don't know how to design a knife, and it's black." But also fold. I like to fold also, to play with folds. And the more simple example is that tray, that Alicia asked me to do a tray. And I was thinking how to make a tray which is minimal and at the same time very particular. So these are two rectangles sliding above each other and folding the difference in between them. And the fold around is not regular, and this is the way you take it. But it's not at the middle of the side, it's at what extremity of the side. So you take it in a little bit oblique. And this is for the UNESCO headquarters when I won a competition for the phone box in the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. And they asked me to design everything after that. And I designed the trash bin and the cigarette container also, that now is not used because we don't smoke in the building, but it was in 2000, by folding aluminum and polish it in a way that you blur the limit of the folds and you don't understand precisely where it is. Blurring a little bit the folds and the limit of this object. And with this box, which open also by sliding or lifting one part, that you discover step by doing two operations, how the space is inside. Folds also buildings. Folding also building in that residency for artists, for a private art collector close to Grenoble in the Alps. I created a black box, totally in wood, but with twisting a little bit the parallelepiped or the cube of the square of the surface, of the impact of the surface on the bottom, to create a new orientation for the windows on different direction, and having just a black facade looking at the place where the collector is living. And this is a place for living for artists, where there are 3 floors, and the bottom floor is a workshop where they can work. And it's very small, it's 170 square meters, but it's very in the trees and with a belvedere on the top that you see on the top, overlooking the valley and the Alps. Twisting also for an offices building in Paris that has been just delivered last year. And it's the top part, there are 3 parts in that building. This is decomposed in 3 parts with greenhouse in between where you have the stairs and the lift. But the first part, which is on the boulevard, on one boulevard, a big boulevard, is a twisted volume with like that. So it's twisted with something, two floors that are going like a box outside, and that gives the impression that you have different facades and you have oriented the facade to different directions. Because when you are on the boulevard, I did that because I was traveling on the boulevard when doing the competition, and because the boulevard is a little bit curved, at one extremity and the other extremity, you have the impression that the building is over the bridge that you see on the right. But it's not on the bridge, it's just in front of on the beside of the bridge. But you have the impression when you are taking the boulevard on both extremities that the building is over the bridge. And I wanted to orientate the different facades to the different direction of the curved boulevard. Also playing with twist, with an installation in the art gallery again, close to my office. It was a piece which is just a twisted perspective with tubes suspended one by one and creating a square that decreases and at the same time is twisted to give the impression, to increase the impression of perspective. And in the UNESCO, I twisted the desk, twisted the seats to create a confidant, and twisted the desk to play with different forms, different shapes, and providing something which is unusual and at the same time that you can keep for sitting differently or going to the desk differently also. Alicia asked me a basket for fruits, and I did a twisted form also, but curvy. And now I'm finishing, now it has stopped for 2 months, but now it started again, a tower in Barcelona, which is that you don't see now really, but this is a twisted form because the tower is not totally the same at every floor. The balconies are having a particular shape at every floor to create the impression that is twisting, that is turning, even if it's a normal and regular shape. And on the top part, there is red balconies. And on the back side, it's very slim. And I love also to play with shell, with something which is like a cocoon, as I said to the meeting rooms in the offices building in Paris. So in that tower, we will have a yoga room, which is a cocoon, as you see the 3D model printed on the B side. And this is where you will feel inside this wooden cocoon for the yoga room with the natural light coming from above in the basement of the tower. And I did also the same, not the same. I played with that by having floating objects. After having the buildings that you see on the back was the drawings that we did for the competition for the offices building in Lyon. But 2 years later, they asked us to do something like an island for the river to provide for a restaurant. And I didn't want to just build a box because I already was doing a box for the building, for the offices building. And I started by doing bubbles, making floating bubbles over the river because there are bubbles in a river, in water. So one bubble is a kitchen, one bubble is a salon, one bubble is a restaurant, etc. And floating them to create something which is another experiment again. And for a shell for the Grand Salon in the Rennes Gallery, my proposal was that this is a space, the rectangle is the space existing, and I proposed to create a shell inside with plaster, projected plaster, with folding projected plaster, to create a kind of an envelope, to create again a new atmosphere, a new way of thinking, of behaving inside and organizing events differently. And inside, you will have had this kind of space inside. They found it a bit complicated. And a light for that I did for South Korea, for a Biennale, which is like a stone. Reflective above, lighting underneath. And the gallery on the side of my office again, the owner has a dog, and the dog is Victor. And Victor had a basket for a dog. And when we renovated the gallery in 2007, I said, no way to bring a dog basket in an art gallery. This is not possible. So I designed the dog basket with a bubble of molded aluminum, painted in black, making sewing by a lady close to the office, a mattress inside for Victor. And 2-3 years later, and I said to the art gallery, to the owner of the art gallery, so now I did that for dogs. I can do that or measure for dogs. I can do that from human to mice. And in 2013, he said, this is time for mice, and I did for the mice, a little one for Christmas as a gift. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my school. Why creating a new school? I know that Athabasca is a particular school because this is an online school, but my school is different. I decided that in 2012, when I left the school that I was directing, was leading, to create a new school of architecture. And I was searching what could be a school of architecture today, not a usual school of architecture. And it was a time when I discovered, by reading a lot and traveling and visiting a lot of schools, that a lot of people were asking themselves if they can create a new way of doing pedagogy, doing education. And so it makes me thinking a lot. And I was reading articles about different experiments by the Finland people who were erasing the courses in rooms for the pupils, because they said that now they learn through internet and we just have to help them be self-critical, to be able to search and to have self-criticism about what do they read and how to take a position and take a stand. And so I said, okay, no way, we will not do courses. And after that, we will have an open space, and the students are installed in an open space that you can see now in Paris, because before we did the school in Lyon and we moved it 1 year ago in Paris. And this is a free access school. They all have the key of the school, and they can come whenever they want, and they have their desk and they can stay there. And they learn by doing. They love to do by doing, because we have some workshop also. And when they work by themselves, when they meet their teachers, they are in the place which is open to the street, as you can see, with large windows. And people in the street sometimes look at what we are doing, when we do exhibition, when we do lectures, when we do work review like that. And this is around the table, or this is on the floor. And the people of the city are really looking at what we are doing. And this is a place where the students, as I said, are learning by doing. We make them learning immediately how to use the tools that we have, the 3D models, the 3D printers, the laser cutter, the robot arm, in Lyon we had the thermoformers, but everything, all the tools, and they know how to use it, and they can use it as they want, except during the night, because we are inside the courtyard and we don't want to have noise for the neighbors. But this is really a place for students. This is not a place for teachers, it's a place for students. They explore by themselves, and they learn from one another, because and at the moment I'm doing the studio online on Zoom, and as soon as they finish to discuss with me and presenting their work, the step of their work, with all the students looking at that by sharing the screens, they do sometimes meeting by themselves on another Zoom meeting, helping each other to how to do this, to use that 3D model, how to do that, how to make some drawings, and they learn a lot like that. And they have, because they are installed in a self-organizing space in the school, and they self-organizing themselves how to learn. And they mix all together from first year to fourth, and only the diploma students are learning by themselves. And you know, in this spring, in March, we had, before the lockdown, we had the 3 workshop for building with 2 former students of the school who came back, one from London, one from Paris, and they're organizing a workshop for material, and the students invented their own material to build something and to create with the machines after that, a project, a construction. Thank you. And by chance, we are very close to the Place des Vosges, and at lunch they can go to sit on the green on Place des Vosges to have their lunch. Not bad. What are we doing now?
Okay, Odile, are you finished?
I think that I finished. I just want to add something, that because we don't know now what the future will look like, I think that we have to re-question everything. And this is what some people are saying today, but I'm not sure that it will happen. But I'm sure about one thing, that we all have experimented now the digital connection. We all now know very well how to do work at home, or work from home, or teach from home, and of this lecture also. But it's not from my home, it's from my office, but it's the same. And I think that we have to re-question and rethink how to do education. I know that in Athabasca, you have online education, and I think that we have to all push that without being present. And I had the discussion 5 minutes before starting the lecture with Antoine Picon, with this philosopher of architect and engineer, who is teaching in States. And he told me that even in GSD in Harvard, they don't know if they will reopen the school in presence, with presence of students in September, but maybe they will continue to work online, and will add and reorganize the pedagogy between online and in presence. And I think that it will make us, it will force us to rethink what space we have to build for everything. For example, for schools, because if we will have more online courses or more online work, why to build big buildings for schools? If you need to continue to work at home, and a lot of people will continue to work at home, because they enjoy to do that, and the companies enjoy that people are working like that, we have to rethink also the way we have to build and to design the house and the home, because we have to provide spaces for work inside the house, and we have to have the kids, and we have to. So this is all these 2 months of confinement make us rethinking the way we work and the project and the program that we are working for. So I think that it's a big question that we have to continue to discuss.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Odile, we have a couple of questions in the chat box, so maybe we could move into a Q&A session if that's okay with you.
Yeah, but I don't see them.
So the first question that I have is from Suran Suradin. He's asking if, do you favor form over function?
I do both at the same time. Form doesn't follow functions, but when I start a project, I don't immediately always imagine what will be the shell, the envelope. I work from the way I will behave inside, and sometimes, but sometimes when it's in France, I have to work in a box, in a volume. So, and I try to make something inside. But it depends. It's never the same, you know. My projects are never the same way of working from the beginning to the end.
There's another question here from Lahassan Jalul. We are asked if you consider yourself to belong to a specific architectural style.
I have no idea about what is a style. I have no idea about what kind of style he's talking about. And I don't refer to what the others are doing. I do the architecture that I believe in, or I trust, or I like to do, and I don't refer to any other system.
Okay, we have a question from Jolanda Morkel.
Because if you do that, you are trapped in a system. You are trapped in a point of view. Because if you want to belong or to be referred to something, you have to just do that, and you can't look at the others. And I'm too much open mind, and I'm too much curious to limit myself to one particular one. So I'm looking at everything, and I don't refer to one.
Great. There's a question from Jolanda Markel. She asks if, Odile, you said earlier that we are entering a new world post-COVID. How do you expect it to change how we do architecture?
This is the question that I ask myself at the end of this lecture, when I said that we have to re-question. I love to have questions, to re-question everything, but this time is much more re-questioning. And because we can't, I have the feeling that we can't continue to live how we were living before. And it's not a question of environmental question only. It's not a question of ecological question. It's a question of behaving between us. My main concern is the fact that we can't, at the moment, be with our friends, be with our family, be with others. And we are frightened by others because we have to keep a distance. And this distanciation between people is quite frightening me, because I'm worried about that, because I think that we are in a human civilization, and we have to live together, and we can't be alone, and we can't stay alone, and we have to share. We have to to learn together. We have to discuss together. My dream now after the confinement is to give a hug to somebody, to touch anybody, to touch somebody. I know that all the civilization, all the culture are not like that, but for me, it's so important to feel and to see people in real, not just by through the screen. And this is really the main question that we have. And if, because of this virus, we'll continue to travel into the world, maybe we will have to keep some distanciation even in the fall, even in next winter. And I really worry about that, because I think that if we have to keep that, and maybe people will maybe very quite pretended to be intelligent, will dictate some rules for that. And we as architects will have to be constrained by these rules of distanciation between people and safety and health. And for me, it's a question of what I don't like also, not only that, but that we have, our freedom is limited. We restrain and we shrink our freedom again and more than before. And I'm from a generation growing in the second half of the 20th century, where we were gaining and winning more and more freedom. And since the beginning of the 21st century, I feel that the freedom is shrinking more and more. And this step with COVID is giving us a strong shrinking of our freedom. And for me, this is not impossible to continue like that. So we have to find solution. And as architect, because architecture, not because we are architects, because we've been educated in architecture, which is different. Because when you are educated in architecture, you are not necessarily an architect, or you don't want to become an architect, maybe. You can do what you want. Because this education is so particular and so interesting and so widely open that you can't limit yourself to just doing designing building. And this is why I think that architecture is so important. And this is why with architecture, we have to be able to re-question with other people connected to us, all this possibility of freedom, living differently, and living with a new way of living. But I want to be able to travel back. I want to be able to connect with people. I want to shake your hand, anyway. And I see you on my screen, but I can't shake your hands or hug you. So I think it's important to feel people. No?
Yes, absolutely. Odile, I just unshared your screen right now so that everyone can see your face.
Okay.
You can also.
They were not looking at me before. Okay.
I think some people had you in the background with your slides in front. So now I think you can also see the chat room.
No.
You can see it? Okay.
No.
We do have a whole bunch of questions. I don't know how many questions we can take, but we can go through a couple of them, and maybe we'll just stop at around 10:30, and then we will see how many we can go through.
Okay.
The next question that I have on the list is from Mehdi Zahed. He's interested to know a little bit more about the educational program at Confluence. How long is the educational program that you teach, and what kind of degree that you offer? He's wondering about.
He's very precise. He can write to us if he wants the answer.
It's
a program of 3+2 with because we deliver the part 1 and the part 2 of the RAIC as we have been accredited. So this is a normal duration of studies, but what is not normal is the way we educate and the way we work inside the school. But there is a website if you want to look at. The website is confluence.eu.
Super. Okay, so let's move on to another question. Aliza Charnia is asking, Odile, I noticed that red is a recurring color in your designs. What draws you to that color in particular?
This is why I show you more colors than the red, because usually everybody asks me, why is red and why is the black? Okay. Black is because I'm always wearing black and I'm attracted in the black, but I don't force people. When I do my buildings, I don't constrain people to have black in their buildings. And I didn't dare for using black in my buildings since until the Museum of Modern Art in Rome. This is where I started to do it. But the red is, I discovered that when I was doing my images, when I'm doing my project, I discovered that the red is really well working with the black. And for me, this is representing a kind of energy. It gives energy. It gives, and this is again, my way of behaving, being energetic, being always going further, as I said. So maybe this is representing me. And it's not a normal red, it's a particular red. This is my red.
Okay. And then we have Wilfred Baum, who's asking you a question. Can this architecture also work with humble materials like brick, mortar, concrete, plaster, and cut timber, or only with highly man-made materials?
No, because my buildings are, for example, the residency for artists in Grenoble is in wood. And I don't think that, and it's a very normal and simple wood that we use, but we just have bitumen on it to have it black, but it's a normal and simple material. I don't, and why you said that concrete is humble, I don't feel that concrete is humble. And bricks, in my tower, all the partition and all the walls are in bricks, because in Spain they built in brick. In France, we will not have done that in brick, but in Spain they do that in brick. So I play with, but I don't do architectures with little modules on facade. It's true. If you want to say that, but it's not, I just work with the budget that I have. I don't overpass my budget usually. And this is what is one of the reason why I really care a lot about my project and my construction building, the construction in my building. But sometimes I'm lucky to have a big, enough budget. Even the project in Rome, the museum in Rome, seems to be very luxurious and sophisticated, but it's the less expensive museum built in the world at this time. Because I manage to use the money where it is possible and where it is not. I deal with the money. I deal a lot with the cost of the different elements of the project. And I want to be involved in everything, including in the budget.
So maybe a good follow-up question here. The next question is from Kayla Potchiter. She's asking what is your preferred material to work with?
It depends. It depends because, again, it depends of the condition. I love to work with steel and glass. It's true, because steel is very precise. You have to play with millimeters when you work with steel, and I love this, playing with the geometry with steel. And when you work with concrete, it's always a little bit not, except if it's pre-molded, it's not totally regular. And the glass for me is a more sophisticated material of today, because this is the material where the invention and the innovation is done a lot. This is because of the cars factory, because the glass is mostly used in the cars and in the buildings. And because of the fact that the cars are more and more open for providing view outside, they have to fulfill a lot of constraints. And this is bringing after that to us in the field of architecture. But this is really a question of conditions. It depends of the condition, it depends of the place, depends of the budget, depends of everything. I'm not something which is ideology. I don't have any doctrine and any ideology. I deal always and play with the condition of the project.
Okay, then we have a question from Patty Price. What about third world countries where budgets are severely limited? What is your thought about that?
I would love to work there. I would love to try to do something there. and to prove that even with my architecture or my way of thinking, I can do something with a limited budget. Yes, because, you know, don't think that my buildings are very expensive. Maybe the tower is a more expensive one that I'm doing, even maybe not, because the client is really controlling the budget. But my building in terms of budget, and because my buildings are particular, you believe that they are very expensive. But believe me, when I did in comparison to a lot of architects that I know, and a lot of architects that I very known, and are building buildings whereby overpassing their budget, I have to say that I never overpass my budget, because I really deal very strongly with my budget.
Okay, then we have a couple of questions related to enrollment to your school and if you're taking any interns. I think I should direct them to your...
We have interns in the office, yes.
So if anyone is looking for a job or wanting to enter Confluence, please check the website.
Yes, exactly.
I'll add to one more question on the list.
So for the office, there is on the website, there is something to click on and to deposit your CV. And for the school, there is a website where everything is explained.
Yes.
Okay, so this is enough.
Just one more question, since we're already nearing our the end of our time. From Vedran Skopak, he's asking, Odile, are we moving away from physical architecture, so to speak, and entering a touchless world where it's much harder to create interaction between the body and the space, as well as that transcendent chemical interaction between humans when they are in vicinity of each other?
This is what we were talking before, no? When the question of the distanciation today. And this is why I said that I really want that this distanciation will stop. But it's not depending on us, it's depending on the virus. And it's depending on the regulations that the country will face to fight against this virus. But it depends on the question of, maybe we have to invent new way of wearing, new way of dealing the spaces. But if we have to live, to continue to live without touching and without interfering with others as it is, for me, this is the end of the life, because we can't. For me, it's impossible. I love that I hope that it will not be like that after maybe 1 year or 1 year and a half. But
Yes.
in the meantime, we have to invent something.
We do have a lot of messages coming in, but I don't think we'll have time to cover all of them. But I'll just choose one that I think would be
I see a question about the school website. The school website is confluence.eu.
Yes.
My telephone is ringing.
Last one from Shireen Khaled. She's asking, what advice would you have for a fresh architectural graduate entering the field? And maybe we'll finish with this question.
What I will say to a fresh architecture graduate. Is that a question? Because my phone was ringing, so can you repeat the question, please, Henry?
What advice do you have for a fresh architecture graduate who is entering the field of architecture?
Is it a woman or a man?
Shireen Khaled, I believe, is a woman.
Okay.
I think that makes it more
Good luck for you. Good luck for you. Good luck, because it will be difficult, but you will be able to do it. So I will advise you to never stop, to never think that you will not do it. You have to run your own office. You have to work with yourself. You have to believe that you are able to do it. And this is not easy. You have to believe and not listening to the others, and especially the men who will tell you that it's not possible. And you have to go to work for somebody else. I have to tell you, and I have to confess maybe, that I never worked for any architects in my life. I started my office directly after my studies. Again, depending of some particular condition at this time, when there were not so much work. And at the same time, because I discovered and I felt very, very, very young that I will have trouble because I was a woman and there were not so many women in the field at the time. And now there is not, again, not so much. I was not thinking that I will go to work for a man in offices which are always running by men, because otherwise it will have been too comfortable for me. And I have to go outside of my comfort zone to be able to prove that I'm an architect and I can do it. So you have to have a bit of talent, but a big determination to do it. And it will take time, and you will succeed maybe after 10, 15 years to do something interesting, but never stop to think that it's possible.
Sounds great.
If you are a woman. If you're a man, it's a bit easier. But again, it could be also difficult, but it's easier.
Thank you, Odile, for your time, and thank you very much for the inspirational talk.
Thank you very much
I think,
for inviting me.
We enjoyed very much having you with us today. And I'll just pass it to Douglas now for a couple of final remarks, and then we can, for us, it's going to be almost lunchtime.
Yeah. It will be dinner.
I don't want to stand between anybody and their meals, so I will try and be very, very brief. But let me just echo, thank you, as Henry said, thank you so much, Odile, for sharing with us today. It's been a tremendous experience. And I also wanted to say, I think Odile has raised some incredibly important issues about how we will live, how we will design, what architecture means in the post-COVID-19 world. And this is both a tremendous challenge and an opportunity for all of us who work in the world of design. And it really is something that absolutely lends itself to being addressed in a global fashion. So I would hope that everybody who was able to participate today would be able to join us in working together to explore some of the issues that Odile raised today. I also just want to nudge as well that people who are applying for professional development credits and continuing ed credits, we'll send out all that documentation to you very shortly so you can request your certificate. And then I just want to mention that our two of their assistant professors, Trevor Butler and Veronica Madonna, will be presenting their shared experience in terms of mass timber design in the next Global Studio lecture, which will be on Wednesday, May the 27th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. In other words, the same time as right now. And this is important because mass timber is quickly emerging around the world as a major building material because of its low carbon characteristics and its opportunity to have a positive impact on the environment. So this lecture is going to look at the architectural and sustainable design perspective of mass timber and look at advancements in its use in both Canada and around the world. And Trevor and Veronica are going to explore the opportunities and challenges that are faced in designing with mass timber today. And share their thoughts on the future of the building industry. So I hope you can join us for that. But finally, I just wanted to make sure there's always a huge team behind this. I know Odile has people helping her with this. Henry has done an incredible job, and others in our team, Carol Mason and Emma Lowry, have also done a wonderful job of supporting this. It's exceeded all of our expectations. I looked in and there were 344 people online at one point. So thank you to all of those who are, particularly if it's late at night or early in the morning, for joining us today. And I really do hope that this will be the first in a series of global activities which we can all participate in. So thank you, Odile. Thank you to everybody online.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. And all of you have a good breakfast, lunch, dinner, or night, whatever.
And we would be happy
Awesome.
if you're in Canada again, we would be happy to take you to the real Athabasca. And
okay. I will let you know.
The summer is probably a better time than the winter, but we'd be delighted to host you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.